Hey, welcome back. I did the top worst. Now we're doing the top best. Let's get into some good stuff here. So, like I said in the previous video, it was easier for me to find stuff to put on the top best list, but a lot harder for me to order it than the top worst list. With top worst list, it was just a matter of what was shitty. And surprisingly, there wasn't a lot of bad movies this year. I mean, there was enough that I eventually did fill out the top 10, but like the bottom ones, like the bottom of the top 10 really weren't terrible movies in my opinion. And this, it was hard because I saw a lot of good movies. What made the cut? What didn't make the cut? I mean, and then how do I order it? That took a lot to process. But ultimately, I mean, we ended up what we ended up with. So let's go down the list here. My 10th best movie of the year was Paddington 2. That movie came out in February, or was it January? 1 second, let me double check that real quick. Was it February or January? Anyway, it came out at the beginning of the year, and it was still one of the films that made my heart smile, which just made me happy. It was January, just made me happy. It's just so full of charm and heart. The first Paddington was fantastic also. If anything, I thought Paddington 2 was better because the villain worked a lot better, in my opinion, for this. Whereas in the original one, I didn't think Nicole Kidman worked necessarily as a villain. Not because she wasn't a good villain, because tonally she didn't fit in the movie for my opinion. She's going like... It's like a horror movie called The Taxidermist, for God's sake. So ultimately, no, Paddington 2 is just fantastic. It's funny. It's heartfelt. It's charming. It will get some tears in your eyes. So ultimately, I gotta put Paddington 2 at the number 2 spot. By the way, if like some movies that aren't on this list are something like a favorite of yours, doesn't mean it wasn't a good movie. Just means there's things I felt detracted it from being in the top 10. But yeah, that was number 2. Or number 10, sorry. Number 9 was Incredibles 2. Sticking with the theme of sequels. Incredibles 2 was... I'll be honest, I've never seen the original Incredibles through its entirety. I've seen enough of it. But it was something... It was a special kind of movie. It shows that lightning can strike twice, if not even better. It's arguable this might be better than the first one. 1 second, because TV's messing with my ADD. I don't actually have ADD, but it's still kind of distracting. There we go. So, absolutely, it's one of those things that, again, it may have been better than the original, because it was tackling some serious issues, not just for kids, but for adults as well. Particularly for adults. Pixar movies I've often heard told, or often are said to be family movies, not kids movies. And I think that's definitely true. You do see people die in these movies. You do see adult themes. You do see really tense situations. But then you get the heart and the family. The joy that you get watching this movie is really hard not to just, smile and laugh at and just enjoy. It is. Why would I put it over to Paddington 2? I think while Paddington 2 was a very simplistic, good movie, Incredibles, it's an anime movie. It's a full anime movie. It can do more. It has a lot more action set pieces. It's just bombastic. And the tone is, the lesson, or the message, I should say, is still very similar to Paddington 2. I think they just take it up to the next step. So, ultimately, yeah, I had to put Incredibles 2 at number 9. Which begs the question, why are it in my top 8? If Incredibles 2, of all things, was in my number 9, you know how good a year it was for movies. In number 8 is Infinity War. Infinity War, look, I have my review for Infinity War up. I've done spoiler discussion. I'll probably do future videos on, Avengers Endgame coming out, but on this subject, maybe talking more about Infinity War and all that stuff. But point being, I have Infinity Gauntlets, a good collection of them at this point. I have Infinity Gauntlets. I just can't get over how they managed to pull this off. Does have some minor issues, like is it overcrowded? Could they maybe whittle it down a little bit? Yeah, they probably could have. But for what we got we saw the characters we wanted to see. We saw them interact with characters we never knew we wanted. Tony Stark and Doctor Strange, some of the best things ever seen. Thor and Star-Lord. It's just good stuff. And Thanos. What can you say about Thanos that hasn't already been said? He is arguably the best MCU villain that has ever existed. And probably one of the best villains we've had in a long time. Probably since like Heath Ledger's The Joker on screen. I think you can make a strong argument that Thanos, when you go to like a top 10 movie villains of all time, you couldn't, I'm not saying he would be, but there's an argument to be made that he'd be in there. He's not the number one. But, I mean, you have like Vader, you have Hans Gruber, you have Heath Ledger's The Joker. I'm certain some of the older movies, like 1950s and 60s and stuff like that, also would have characters that might qualify for that. Like, the character from, not Citizen Kane. What am I? Something Kane. Why am I blanking on the there was remade with Robert De Niro as the bad guy also. Wow, I'm blanking on the name of that film. But yeah, that might be on there as well. So I mean, but I think there's a firm argument to make that Thanos would be in the top 10 villains of all time. He's compelling. He's evil. But there's something of humanity in him. You actually see his viewpoint, and at points you're kind of rooting for him because it's just his conviction in what he's doing. So I mean, Avengers: Infinity War, the culmination of what they did up until now was just, I think they did everything they could with it, and it was perfect the way they did it. Honestly, well, or near perfect anyway. So that's my number 8. My number 7 is Bad Times at the El Royale. This is a film that really got overlooked, I think. It's a slow build, so when we get to the finale, if you're not with the pace of the movie, I can understand why you might not be with it. But for me, it worked because it felt very Quentin Tarantino-esque. It felt very much it had a very similar tone anyway to Hateful Eight, where it was just a lot of time people talking and things along those lines. But the dialogue was sharp. The dialogue was good. The storytelling was fascinating. The backstories were great. And then, I mean, Jeff Bridges. Jeff Bridges, I think, was a standout character in that. Absolutely. Chris Hemsworth was a good villain. He was a creepy kind of Charles Manson-esque character. Absolutely. I'll admit, wasn't a big fan of Dakota Johnson just because of her character, not because of Dakota Johnson. I think she played it fine, but wasn't a big fan of her character, if I'm going to be honest. I don't know her name. She played the singer. She was fantastic. And the end of that movie, the movie's been out now for about, how long has it been out now? 3 months? 4 months? I got this up here. Why don't I just check? Let's see here. Oh, because it came out, I think, either September or October. Let's see here. Bad Time. Nope. Yeah, October 12th. It's been out now for about 11 months. Or 11 months. About 3 months now. Yeah, close to. So, yeah, I'll spoil it. Not that I care. The end where you see him go and he goes to her show. But the way it's designed, it's clear. He's having one of those moments where, because the way it's staged, he's not quite certain where he is. But you realize he still remembered his promise to go see her at her show. And then she sees him there. And that just gives her a nice smile on her face. And, you know, they start playing. It was I thought it was just a fantastic movie. Why did I put it over even Infinity War? Well, Infinity War is bombastic and huge and everything. It's a spectacle. But let's not mince words. From a storytelling perspective, from a character depiction, they did their jobs, everything like that. Some of what you had to do wasn't in depth for that movie. You didn't have to do it. It was supposed to be a blockbuster more than anything else, even though it had some really good storytelling. Bad Times was definitely more of a character piece all around, not just in like Infinity War, where Thanos, it was pretty much a character piece there. No, it was a character piece on every front, and dialogue really helped with that. Bits of action that showed up were really good. So ultimately, I can't say enough really about Bad Times at El Royale. I think that was a very severely underrated film this year. So at number 6, we have Christopher Robin. Look, man, I know there's some people who didn't love like the first part of it, and then got on board. I actually really liked the first part of it, but I can understand where people would have problems. But for me, Pooh and the gang interacting with older Christopher Robin, and just him recapturing his spark and his joy and his youth, and bring it, passing it on to his daughter and everything. It's just basically coming back into terms with who they are, and you shouldn't, being an adult doesn't have to be glum and serious all the time. I thought that was just handled beautifully. Silly old bear. Just, oh man, it's because I grew up watching like the Winnie the Pooh cartoon. I don't think I watched the movie ever, to be honest. But I remember watching the cartoon of Winnie the Pooh a lot as a kid. I'm like, I love. Who doesn't love Winnie the Pooh? Who doesn't love Pooh Bear? Who doesn't love Piglet? Tigger? Even Eeyore was arguably the best part. Oh well, goodbye, cruel world. Who doesn't love these characters? Seriously, kangaroo, rabbit, owl. It just made my heart. I just had this big shitting grin. I'm just like, just like, yay. The whole time it was just something there was something about that captured a magic again for me, and just like it just made me happy to be watching it. So that's something that I think it has over all the other films besides Paddington. I think Paddington might be structured better, but I think Winnie the Pooh, I think, was just overall, because Paddington was a very light movie with a couple moments of being serious. Winnie the Pooh surprisingly took itself, while it was light, it was also a serious subject matter that was being addressed with Christopher Robin himself and his family about growing up too quick and losing your imagination. So I think that really pushed over the edge for me. But it's only number 6, so head stand. At number 10, we have Paddington 2. Number 9, Incredibles 2. Number 8, Infinity War. Bad Times rounds out 7. And 6th spot is Christopher Robin. So this is my top 5 best films of 2018. At number 5, A Star is Born. I have only sat through this movie once, and I feel like I might be able to get through it a second time. When I got, this was like an emotional gut punch of a movie. It was beautiful. Bradley Cooper is definitely going to get an Oscar nomination for Best Director, especially for a first-time director. But the way he shot it, and there's a few minor mistakes as a first-time director, but nothing that detracts ultimately from the film. The way he shot it, the way he directed himself and Lady Gaga, the way he's probably going to earn a Lady Gaga an Oscar nomination. Lady Gaga is fan-freaking-tastic. And she's been on the acting scene for a little while now. I know she's got big parts like in American Horror Story, and I think in a few other things she's been in. But this is really the first time we've actually seen her stretch her acting chops out. And look, she really killed it. She was probably as good, if not even a little better, than Bradley Cooper, who is phenomenal in the movie. And I mean, if you know the story of How a Star is Born, you know it does not end well. It's a tragic tale in many ways. Almost all the time it's a tragic tale with some uplifting stuff at the end. And when I saw that the first time, it put me in a weird mental state, because as someone who has dealt with a couple issues that are addressed in the film on occasions, it kind of struck me on a personal chord in many levels, and it really kind of, it's one of those. I think I tried to explain it in the car too when I was doing the review, that I was like, whoa. It's like I'll need a few days to process what I just went through. And Sam Elliott, by the way, Sam Elliott is barely. It's not barely. I think he's probably in about 15 minutes of the film. His 15 minutes are great, but he has one scene that honestly could earn him the nomination as Best Supporting Actor on its own right. I don't guarantee he's going to get a nomination, but there's one scene, and I swear to God, it's going to be the scene they use to use if he gets nominated to show why he's being nominated. There's a scene in the movie. It's still technically in theaters too, so I won't spoil what the scene overall is or how it ends up. Basically, it's a conversation between him and Bradley Cooper in a car, and Bradley Cooper says something and leaves, and basically the reaction, what we see, how Sam Elliott handles that scene is like, holy shit, Sam Elliott's good. So, I mean, in the songs, there's going to be some Best Song nominations, no doubt. Songs are fantastic. The music is great. Bradley Cooper actually learned how to play the guitar. So yeah, Star is Born easily my number 4 spot. We kind of crank up the level at the number 5 spot. Sorry, number 5 spot with the film call, because so far they've been all fantastic films. Now we're hitting like these are Oscar caliber films we're getting here. Like I would honestly say, besides Incredibles 2, I was like a best animated film, and honestly I think it'd be Spider-Man, because it's just that even I have to agree, Spider-Man I think is even a better film than Incredibles 2. None of these are really like, oh my god, these are like Oscar caliber films. Once they hit Star is Born and go to the number 5 through 4 spot, these are the Oscar caliber films, at least in my opinion. So at number 4 we have BlacKkKlansman. I've never been a big Spike Lee fan, if I'm going to be honest, but I saw something, this is interesting, and then I'm hearing like fantastic reviews where it's like, okay, I got to go check this out. And I will say this, there's a reason it's in the number 4 spot. For 99% of this movie, I'm like, holy shit, this is one of the best freaking movies of the year. This is one of the best movies I've seen in recent years. And if it wasn't for that last 3 minutes of reliving Charlottesville, reliving everything that's actually happening now, I might have argued that could have been number 1. I might, but I'll be, and for some people I know that worked, and I know Spike Lee is a very political individual, and it's important this information that we know that this is still going on, that we can't just. I completely get it. But for a movie-going experience, that really took me out of the mood. I am sorry, that really just put the brakes on. I was like, oh come on, man, really we're, oh god, it's like I get it. It's important. We know what's happening, but don't do that. Don't attach it to at like this. Don't attach it as a stinger at the end of the film. Not even the credits. Like at the end of the film itself. Don't do that. And he did it. And I'm like, and I wasn't. And at first I was at odds whether I'm like, did that work? Did it not? For me, it didn't work. It really put a kibosh on the entire experience. But that said, I mean, everyone is fantastic. Oh God, what was his name? Denzel's kid, because it's Denzel's son, Denzel Washington's son, who's I believe BlacKkKlansman came out in August. Come on, where is it? Okay, maybe it wasn't August. Where is Black? Oh, there it is. Yeah, it came out in August. Okay, BlacKkKlansman. What was the actor's name? First up, Adam Driver. There it is, and John David Washington. Okay. John David Washington is fantastic, and he works off great with Adam. I'd love to see these guys work again. Both these guys are just fantastic in the movie. And I said it before in my review, but I'll say it again. One of the things that really made this movie special was it showed you both sides of the scenario. And what I mean by that is, you saw obviously that the KKK members. KKK are a terrible group of people ultimately. But you still saw that despite all their beliefs being terrible and wrong and everything along those lines, they're still people with like friends and jobs and families and that they love and care about. So while you see that ultimately they're not good people at all, you see that they're still people, which is weird. It's very weird. But that was really well done. And the film works just well enough to know when to throw in some humor to kind of lighten the mood a little bit, so you can breathe a bit, and then go back into the tension of the situation. It was just so brilliantly balanced. I loved BlacKkKlansman. If only that last few minutes hadn't just freaking killed it. But what are you gonna do? My number 3 spot goes to Bohemian Rhapsody. Now, see, Bohemian Rhapsody, I would argue BlacKkKlansman is a maybe overall better composed film, but Bohemian Rhapsody, Rami Malek's getting an Oscar nomination. I think that's almost guaranteed. Bohemian Rhapsody is, as a Queen biopic, maybe as a Freddie Mercury biopic, it maybe isn't the greatest, but where it's still a solid told film. But when you get to the last 20 minutes of the Live Aid performance, where BlacKkKlansman basically kind of put the brakes on the vibe and the energy coming off the movie, the last few minutes, The last 20 minutes alone, you have to see in the theater to feel like you are there. Feel like you're there at Live Aid. It was almost like mind blowing. Like, whoa, this is amazing. I mean, it's one of those things there. You almost can't comprehend what you just kind of witnessed. Like, holy shit, that was like history, little history I was watching right there. And you can make the same argument for BlacKkKlansman, but it was a different type of history, and it was told more in a satirical manner on some level, because it was told with more levity than, say, Bohemian Rhapsody was. Because they had moments in the BlacKkKlansman where you could have a laugh or two, take some time out of it. While there are moments where you laugh in Bohemian Rhapsody, you're also dealing with a lot of the seriousness of it. It is kind of a melodrama with comedic elements in it, or musical drama, however you want to call it. So it is ultimately a different type of film. And again, whereas you go off on kind of depending on how you view the BlacKkKlansman thing, kind of a sour note with BlacKkKlansman. On this, you're just coming out of the rush of the last 20 minutes. Like, whoa. And maybe that is jading my opinion on Bohemian Rhapsody somewhat. But ultimately, I thought it was fantastic. It is my number 3 film of the year. We're in the final 2 now. My number 2 spot is A Quiet Place. What John Krasinski did with A Quiet Place. Basically being his first time directing. And what he did, the world that he was able to get composed, the actors who... What he got out of his actors? What he got out of him and his wife, Emily Blunt? Oh God, what was the actress's name? Who's actually deaf in real life, if I'm not mistaken. The one who played his daughter. Hold on, that was in April that came out. A Quiet Place. Yes, A Quiet Place. Let's see here. What was her name? It was Emily Blunt. Was it Noah Jubilee or no? Millicent Simmons, I believe. Simmons. Amond. So, okay, just adjusting. There we go. I'm suffering a bit of a work injury, and I pulled a muscle, and it's a little unpleasant right now. What he got out of her, particularly because I believe she is deaf. So, the fact that she's a deaf actress playing a deaf character, and what they did with that, the fact is that because she's deaf, they've already are prepared to deal with a life of, just sign language, but also with communication and, preparation. And the way they handled that was fantastic. And the creatures, I'll admit, the creatures weren't what I was hoping for, but it's cool with what we got. They were still cool. I was hoping for something a bit more like a giant manning bat thing or something like that. That would have been cool. But what we got was still pretty fun. And, the moments of tension, oh my God. Because of the nature of the movie, you're quiet throughout the entire movie. You're holding breaths you're not even knowing you don't even know you're holding. And a scene on the stairwell with the nail. Oh Christ, just you step on there and go, because I've stepped on nails before. That shit does not feel good. That shit hurts. So yeah, it's a tough thing. It's tough. But ultimately, Quiet Place, what they did, how they handled it, the scene at the end where he sacrifices himself for his kids. Oh man, it's like, I love you. Don't say I love you. I've always loved you. It's just, and because they know sign language, he can tell his kids that without making a noise and therefore not attract the creatures. Like, oh man, it was so well done. So, just to round it out, number 10 is Paddington 2. Number 9 is Incredibles 2. Number 8 was Infinity War. Bad Times at the El Royale was at number 7. Number 6 goes to Christopher Robin. Top 5 spot goes to Star is Born. 4 is BlacKkKlansman. Bohemian Rhapsody at number 3. And A Quiet Place at number 2. And my number 1 film of 2018 goes to A Green Book. Or the Green Book, I should say. Look, there are aspects on some of the other films on the list that I like better than Green Book. I won't lie to that. But the actual storytelling of this friendship that develops with Viggo Mortensen and Mahershala Ali, I'll be honest, I haven't seen anything quite like this in a while. These guys are breaking we're breaking ground for portrayals that I don't think they've ever played. That sentence didn't even make sense. Basically, it's like we basically saw these actors playing characters and going to new places as actors that I don't think we've seen them go. Viggo Mortensen in particular. If there's any one of these guys who's going to get an Oscar nomination for Best Actor, assuming either of them do, I think it'd be Viggo Mortensen. Viggo Mortensen is like, oh my God. Viggo, like, Mark even saw the trailer, like, he didn't even realize that was Viggo Mortensen. And Viggo Mortensen doesn't act as much as other, like, he's very choosy about his roles. But also that's probably because, like a lot of actors, he made a butt ton of money off the Lord of the Rings movies, so he doesn't have to work if he doesn't want to. But so yeah, he kind of just picks and chooses what roles he wants to play, and this is one he wanted to play, and he just nailed it. I wasn't seeing Viggo Mortensen when he was playing this guy. I was just seeing Tony. It was Tony. That was his character's name. I can't remember the actual name. Tony Lip, as his nickname was. And then Mahershala Ali's character, again, a guy who's brilliant at what he does, but to some degree is out of touch with his culture, with kind of other people in general to some degree, because I think even Viggo Mortensen says, like, you live in this ivory tower on your throne and all that. And he has, he's like, you don't even know I'm blacker than you and all that. And there's that great scene you even see in the trailer. It's like, so tell me, Tony, if I'm not white enough, if I'm not black enough, then what am I? So, yeah, it's hard hitting. It's dealing with race issues in a very realistic way, how it went down. And, how they dealt with it back then, how much of this is actually true is up for interpretation. Both of the real life people died, apparently 3 months between each other. And they remained friends since that day, up until the day they died. They were friends up until then. I was like, that's really cool. They show the duality situation. It's like Viggo Mortensen isn't actually really racist, but he does have some inherent racist tendency. Like when he sees two black guys drinking from glasses in his kitchen for like doing like some handyman work because it's hot out, he like puts the glasses in the trash and stuff like that. But later on, it's just like, no, he's just talking when Mahershala like it's nothing. It's like he gets upset when the guy calls him half an N-word. It's like, oh, so you're Italian. Oh, that explains why you're so happy. You're okay with it. You're half an N-word yourself. And then he just punches him. So yeah, it's not like he's a perfect human being. It's like, no, I ain't racist on that. But it's one of those things where he never really thought on it until then. He didn't care ultimately if someone was black or not. But because of the time, absolutely, he reacted in certain ways. And it made sense. And they addressed those things. And just the way this story is handled and the way they interacted with each other and the chemistry between Mahershala Ali and Viggo Mortensen, my God, is just one of those things that I can't think of it and think. There was like one line or one plot point that I think is kind of addressed in a line, but I don't think it was addressed like the wording. I think I missed on it. Like in one scene, Viggo Mortensen bails him out of a issue with a cop, and he and another man were basically getting intimate with each other, or they're going to have sex, or they were having sex. And I feel like that was never addressed, but I feel like I also feel like I might have missed the line where he kind of addressed it, because there is a line he says, like, look, working in a nightclub in New York, you've seen everything. So I think that was supposed to be the line where it's like, I don't care. It's like, it's fine. I don't care, man. Do it. You do you, and you do other guys. That's fine. Okay, whatever. I think that's what they were trying to get with that line. I just think it might have gone over my head initially. Ultimately, though, yeah, that is my top 10 list. Green Book is my number one film of the year. What was your number one film of the year? What was your worst film of the year? Put in the comments below. Let me know. Let me know what your lists are. But until then, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. As always, if you want us to review something, put in the comments below. Let us know. We'll do a review of it at some point. And ideas for who would win, Star Wars, Super Magic, what if, anything you do on the channel, put that in the comments below. Let me know. I'll get to it at some point. You puppy. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. I'll have the who would win up before I go to bed, so don't worry about that. Later, folks.